Here I am with the second day, or really the second diary kind of day for this organization that I'm doing, and I am going to focus on this cubby here that's kind of a stair step cubby. And I'm going to focus on getting a whole bunch of quilt shop quality fabric folded up and put into there. And I'm also going to focus on some tie dye fabric that I have on either side of this thing. For items that I'm putting into the cubby that's kind of like a stair step cubby that I have, I am putting things on a magazine board so I can put them nice and upright. So I'm going to show that process. They are magazine boards, and let's see. Okay. And I just got these off of Amazon. People like to use these for storing their comic books, for the people that have the collections that way. But they're called magazine boards. You can get them 8.5 by 11. So that's what I do. And I just take my fabric, and I'm doing this with the quilt shop quality fabric, by the way. So I like to kind of have the selvage towards the inside of it. And so I just get it positioned like that. And then I'll just do that. I kind of have that folded that way. And then what I like to do is I like to slip this in between these two layers. And then I just roll this. And so I gotta kind of get that shaken out a little bit there. And that works. But I just make sure that I have it fairly tight. And then I just secure that, and I can just secure it with a pen. So, like, see here, I'm able to kind of grab that, and then I just do that, and then I just like to kind of tuck it back in so that sharp little point doesn't stick me later. And then that is going to be able to fit into those standard cubby sizes for the cube organizers really nicely. one of the things I've accumulated quite a lot of over the past about a year and a half, I suppose, is all of these little squares where I have been testing out different ice dye techniques. And so, one of the things I would like to do is I would like to actually offer most of this for sale on Etsy so that anybody who actually wants to work with this, they can. But first, I have to go through and iron these. They get crinkled pretty easily, and I've had a lot of these where I did do a lot of ironing before, but they've been sitting there for quite a while, and they've been sitting in stacks, and they've actually been sitting in stacks on either side of that stair step cube organizer. And so I just found over a few days that I would be trying to go through and sort through the piles on either side, and I would find more of these. Okay, so this is my cubby. I've actually had a whole bunch of days between when I was shooting, folding all of those onto the boards. So what I ended up doing is I ran out of the boards that I had pretty fast. So I ended up getting comic book boards. So let me see if I can find an example of that. Yeah, here's a great example. Okay, so this right here is just a normal board. This is a comic book board, so you can see that they're a lot thinner and they're not as tall either. So that can be a good thing if you don't have quite enough space. Because I noticed with this one, it was just a little tight trying to get this to fit in here. Whereas if it was on the comic book board, that's perfect. But you do lose the depth in here. And so this is better for depth. It's also better just in general for being able to take a wide amount of fabric and being able to get more rolls on it without having it get really thick. This is, I believe, probably about 2 yards. And so it's not very thick, but if I had that on this comic book size, then it would actually be quite a bit thicker than what this already is. So I have that. So it's an ongoing process. I ended up buying more of that larger size here. And I have still some more of these that I need to fold. I'm actually mostly for the most part I'm to the end of folding these. And so I have these kind of grouped out. I built this unit as an extra unit because this was in so tight in here that it was just like really struggling trying to get that stuff out of there. So now this is really nice and loose. There is the ability to have this collection grow a little bit. And since these are my quilt shop sourced fabrics, then I definitely have an interest in having this part of the collection grow. Whereas before, when I did the cubbies, that was actually more like mostly Joann's based and also some other big box retail outlet type of stuff. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get these that I folded up. Now, another thing that I noticed over time, because I've had this kind of setup for years, but I always found every time I tried to get this stuff out that it was irritating. So what I have decided to do is I am pairing these up this way, and then I put it like that. And then that way, whenever I get something out, I'm not having like a whole cascade of stuff. And so instead of having everything the same direction and then it just becomes a problem whenever I try to get stuff out, I just put them up in pairs. And if I have an odd number, then I'll put like 2 like that, and then I'll put 1 against it. So, but in this case, everything is actually an even number. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And these have dinosaurs, so I have a spot where I have more kind of like animal themes and things like butterflies. So I'm going to put that down there with those. And then these are blues. So I have a couple of blues here. I'm going to put these in with my blues. And let's see, I actually want to kind of do it like that. And this is kind of a loose organization. It's not absolutely really rock solid absolute, you know. And that's the thing with organizing, is it's going to change over time. So actually, this is a case right here where I have an odd number. So I have these 2K facets. I have them together. And then I have a Tula Pink. That was kind of the odd one out. But I do have Tula Pink in here somewhere. And I'm wanting to keep... here we go. So Tula Pink is right here. So I'm wanting to keep Tula Pink together. And I want to keep my K facets together. And so that's a case where I'm not trying to do that by color. Instead, I'm doing it by designer. And since I have this orange and floral zone is kind of to its max, I'm going to go ahead and take the two capes out of there, and I'm going to put them elsewhere. So I think I'm going to put them down with these. And I think that works pretty well. And then the rest of these are my batiks. And so again, I have it like that. And then I'm just going to shove those right down into my batik zone. And there I have it. So this is all pretty good. I do have some clutter that's kind of on the top of the unit here, but it works pretty well. And then I'm going to show you what I did with those die squares I did. Let's go on over here. And so here's all of those die squares. All of this took me days. The die squares, I think, probably took me at least half a week. I kept coming across more of them. So as you can see, this is a really huge amount. And these are actually all of the ones that I have set aside to be able to sell. And so I'm going to just kind of pick out things that seem to kind of complement each other, go together fairly nicely, and just sell those in lots on Etsy when I finally get around to doing that. So I have a lot of just different stuff that way. And then I have some more that I decided to keep. I do have some of these that I decided to set aside so I can turn them into cozies. So I put those up into the works in progress zone that's over here. And then over here, these guys don't have a home yet, but these are die pieces that I'm keeping. And so there's a lot of things like shiboris in here. This is a snowflake shibori fold. And then, I have just different sorts of scrunches and some different folds here. It's just some different things where I can cut these things down smaller and I can use them and they'll look pretty cool. So that's a pretty good amount of progress. All of this that I did back here, that was new stuff that went in, and I would say at this point, probably about 60% of it is new that went into these units. All of that really took up about half a week. I would say between the die squares and these, it took up about a week of my time. And so you got to keep in mind whenever you're organizing, and especially if you have a task this big, just have some patience with it, take breaks, and just try to do what you're comfortable doing. And if you kind of reach a limit or you feel yourself getting sore or something, hopefully you don't work yourself to the point where you get sore, but it does happen. Then, just take some breaks, come back to it later, come back to it the next day. And, you might even need to just kind of, make like a quick little block or something just to kind of be a mental palate cleanser so that then you're ready mentally to come back to it again. Because this is going to be an ongoing process. Organizing, it's great in theory, but it's not like you do it and it's just done forever. With organizing, you have to just keep doing it. It's one of those things where it's like a maintenance thing. It's kind of like doing the dishes. You're always using dishes, getting them dirty, and then you got to clean them again. So I hope that this has been helpful. I am very encouraged by the amount of interest that I had on the first video. So thank you very much for that. And I hope that you tune in for the rest of the series. Thanks for watching.